All right, welcome back, everybody. I just got done watching Spiral on Shudder, and I wanted to make this video the minute I got done watching this film. Whether that says a lot or a little about this, we'll have to find out during this video. But um, we'll go ahead and play this trailer here. So the story of this film, which is roughly again about an hour and a half this time on Shudder, is the story of a married gay couple traveling to a new town. Uh, and things begin to become weird. They have a couple of break ins early on, things are a little bit off. And sorry if I'm a little frazzled. There's a lot of things that hit you toward the end that you're having to tie to. Um, Things are off. Some of the neighbors seem weird, and it seems they believe in rituals and things like that. This one ties to a lot of another growing trend of you'll never know what your neighbors are doing in the that kind of genre, that like old cult vibe that, like, once again, I believe Paranormal Activity 4 does, and uh, there's a few of them on Netflix now. I can't think of what they're called off the top of my head. I'm sorry. I normally plan these a little bit better, but I wanted to talk about this while it was fresh in my head. We're going to go by this pretty much the same 5 rating score that we were doing before, except we've changed out acting for the looming threat or the monster in this one. But as you can see, or as you could have seen by the trailer on this it's on Shudder, so it should be classified as a horror. But for this, it comes off more as a dark window or a secret window type movie where you're trying to figure out what's going on throughout the entire film, or what is the threat. And this movie tackles a lot of interesting points. So the story continues on. It's a relatively quickly paced film, but shot really, really well and really interesting. For some odd reason, I can't explain how I feel about the film. Like, I enjoyed it and I enjoyed watching it, but it'll leave you confused, but it'll explain everything, but it doesn't hold your hand, which is what you want in a horror film. But once again, it comes off as that thriller. So we'll start with the basic. The story on this one was really good, but I just feel like it has a sub-political plot to it, and I don't really need that in a horror film. And I understand you can disagree with me as much as you want, and I understand that, and everyone has their own opinion, and I humbly ask for you to give me your opinion on it. Long story short, I'm giving the story a 7. I thoroughly enjoyed the story that was going on in this. Next is threat on this rating, and the threat is unknown throughout most of the film. You have a general idea of what it is because of how they've kind of thrown it out there, and how they've made it seen early on that they're unwanted, but you don't know the general. There's no monster in this. If anything, monster is societal norm, if you can give it that. So threat on this one, the threat plays in the background of this one. Even though it stares at you right in the face, it's not the monster chasing you. It's not the witch hunting you. It's not the a curse that's placed on this town or anything like that. It's something that's subtle and in the back of it. There's not a break. There's not a murderer. There's not a curse. It's strange to treat the threat in this way. It being subtle and not forcing the monster, if you will, down our throats, I want to give it a 6 on the threat. Personally, you're never afraid or anything like. You're never afraid isn't the word I would really use here, but you're never really looking for the monster. It's more of trying to solve this mystery, if you will. So the threat or the chase of this threat is probably a 6. Like it's a good movie, but the threat isn't for a horror movie standards, if that makes sense. Which maybe it wasn't supposed to be, and maybe it's on Shudder for other reasons, trying to give people a different branching point out. Rewatchability on this one is more. I don't really know how to put it. There are like most of these horror movies here recently. There's light. How do I phrase this? There's a couple of twists and turns throughout the film, so rewatchability on this, once you experience it once, you want to rewatch it. This one I would only watch one more time, personally. It's a good film. Like, I enjoyed most of this movie, but it just, I would recommend it to a friend, but I wouldn't sit down and watch it with them, if that makes sense. We'll go to the next one, which is scare. The scares in this movie, once again, it plays off more like a thriller. There's not a lot of actual horror in this. The last 20 minutes of the film spike into scary movie territory, which is good, which fits our category of this month. But it's just the scare of this film. They fell into a classic cliche of the violins get loud, the trumpets get loud, and it's going to stop for the hard scare of the loud drum. And you don't want to fall into that cliche, especially if veteran watchers are doing this. But once again, if you're new to it and you don't want something that's that gory chaser or that illogical threat there, then this movie's probably really good for you. It's probably really good for scares because you wouldn't be able to pick it out so well. A few of the scares, unfortunately, one is overplayed a few times, and they didn't really pull that off for me. So for the scare on this one, it's probably like a 5 because it fell into such hard cliches. But if this was a mystery category instead of scare, it would have been up in the 6s and 7s. So I'll give it a 6 on scare. No, I probably won't do that. It's not a scary film. Like, it has the cheap jump scares early on, then it becomes the mystery. It doesn't do enough subtlety with the scares. They fall into that old cliche of loud music into stop, and that's not what new age horror is about, and you don't want to fall into that campy category. There's no need for it anymore when enough people have seen these horror films. For that, what was it? It was story was that, threat was that, rewatchability was that. I enjoyed the film. Overall, the film was good. It wasn't what I was expecting walking into it, and that's why it was so good, I think. If I went into this film thinking it was a mystery thriller, I would have accepted this, and it wouldn't have marked near as high. And I know by my ratings over here, it doesn't seem like it's going to have a good score, but I genuinely enjoyed watching this movie for the first time. This movie is probably about a 7.5. Like, I genuinely enjoyed the film itself, but if it was for scare, so overall quality of the film is probably about a 7.5 to an 8-ish. Like, maybe a 7.8 to my highest I would recommend. But for a scary film, it's not that. It comes across as, and I mean this in no negative or hateful way, this movie can best be summarized as the homosexual Get Out. And it makes sense to why they would film it the way they did if you think of it that way. And I once again, by no means do I mean this to be hateful or anything along those lines of calling it just that version of this or anything like that. The acting in it was great. The storytelling was fantastic. The theatric works in it were really well. It was shot beautifully, but for a scary film, it didn't hit on fear. It hit on a good thriller mystery. And that's why I'm going to give it a 7.8, and I'm probably going to leave it there. But if it's a scary film you want that's going to keep you up at night, it's not that. It's a 5 for a horror film. But it's just a good movie. Like, I really enjoyed that film. I enjoyed all the actors, and I'm really thankful for that they brought this out into the world for us to really understand how it could have been like back then, how things could have been seen in the 90s, is where this film takes place. I thoroughly enjoyed this film. This is Spiral on Shudder, and this was day 3 of our 31 Days of Horror reviews. And I guess I'll catch you guys next time. And if anything, I'm afraid that you guys think of my diagnosis of this as negative, and I don't want it to be that way. We'll tune into day 4 when I finish watching it. Take care, guys. Be safe.